Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your girl Mitzi, and this is Mitzi. Let's think about it. Today, we are thinking about chronic pain. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that is a thinker. And thankfully, I have a special guest here, Dr. Yass, who is going to be really breaking this down for us so that we can really think about this in another way. So, thank you so much for coming on my show. Let's just dive right into it. When you think of chronic pain, what does that make you think about?
So, chronic pain is an epidemic that has existed for about 40 years. Because it's existed for so long, people do not realize that chronic pain did not exist prior to the mid to late 1980s. And so you have to begin to think about the idea what brought on this epidemic. What happened in the mid to late 1980s? And the answer is technology, automation, phones, telephone, the computers. Basically, what happened was if this was the 1970s, 99% of the population were doing manual, multi-directional activities, job-related, recreational, all that type stuff. Then came automation and everything changed. We went to maybe 80 to 90% of the population now doing activities, both job related and recreational, where they sit most of the time.
Right.
As a result of that, muscles that are not used will weaken. When you then do attempt to do an activity that requires you to do it manually, if the muscles do not have strength, they will now become susceptible to straining and eliciting pain. So as a result of this, at that point, you have a meteoric rise in the number of people suffering with acute pain. People who used to be just elderly, retired people suffered with chronic pain. They called it rheumatism, but basically it was lack of strength because they retired and stopped moving. Well, now you have 20 and 30-year-olds who are doing the very same thing, representing that same ideal. I'm basically not moving, even though I'm 20 or 30. I sit most of the day. So because of this influx of people from now 20, 30, 40, 50 to the 90s now not moving, you have this massive rise in people suffering with acute pain. The downside of this system is the fact that along with that technology in the medical field came the MRI. The MRI cannot identify muscular causes. I'll say it again. The MRI cannot identify muscular causes. They can only see structural abnormalities, herniated discs, arthritis, stenosis, pinched nerves. So quite simply, you get up this morning, you dropped your pen, you bend down to grab your pen, and you get massive pain in your lower back. If this were the 1970s, you'd go to the hospital, they'd take an x-ray, they'd see no fractures, they'd say, oh, you pulled your low back, go rest for a week and then get back and go do your life.
Yeah.
2024, you get an MRI, which finds a herniated disc, which is just some degenerative process that existed well before you had a symptom. Since it's identified at the time of your pain, it is asserted to be the cause of your pain. And for the rest of your life, you are known as a herniated disc. So all treatments going forward relate to the herniated disc that never was creating a symptom and required no intervention. And that poor lower back muscle that's strained never gets resolved because you don't even know it's a muscle that's creating your pain. So it continues to elicit pain for the rest of your life.
Exactly. Exactly. I love the way that you broke it down because people don't think about it in that concept. They think
That's
of
right.
it as exactly how you explained it because I've dealt with insurance companies and how they process things and how they actually insure things. And you are absolutely right when it comes down to, oh, once they give you this label, this diagnosis, and that's all they really care about. They go back to plan A. Oh, okay, well, that's on there. So that means it has to do something with that. They always just reference it back, but why can't it be something and why can't it be something else surrounding it? Why can't people start focusing on the fact that there's muscle on top of bone? You know
Right.
what I mean? It's like over the head. They count
Yeah.
for veins, they count for the blood, they count for the bones, but and the nervous system, but they don't account for how
Muscle.
much the muscle impacts our body and our
Right.
well-being.
Muscle is invisible to the medical system. And here's the thing you want to understand. Ask anybody about their pain
Mhm.
And if I say, what brings you here? This is what the person says. I can't go upstairs because I have pain. I can't bend down because I have pain. I can't reach behind me because I have pain. Why do you keep associating your pain with activity? Oh, that's because the tissue associated with activity is muscle. So if it was a herniated disc, let me ask you this. Does it matter whether you're sitting or standing? If it's herniated, it's herniated. So why don't you have pain 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? Why is your pain only associated with activity? It gets worse with activity and gets better when you stop. Because it's muscle.
Yeah, and it bothers me when they say, "Oh, it hurts when I go like this." Okay, then all they say is, "Well, don't do it."
Correct.
Well, that doesn't
That's
resolve
not
my
the
issue.
answer.
That doesn't
That's
resolve my issue. Exactly.
that's
Let's
right.
try this again. Give me something else in the bunch, but they don't. They don't.
Correct.
I've noticed that sometimes in the medical field, they just want to diagnose and bypass, pass along, next, 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 and it's sad that the health field is not there to actually help people. So it leads me to my next question.
Sure.
What is your opinion on the pharmaceuticals when it comes to dealing with this chronic pain that millions of people are having?
So there's been lots of movies that everybody wants to attack Purdue, the company that made Oxycontin. I got all that. But let me ask you
Yeah.
this. If the planet didn't have pain and they produced a painkiller, who was going to take the painkiller? Who was going to take it? No one has pain. Oh, here, would you like heroin? No, no, I'm good. I don't really need it because I don't have pain. So you're shooting the wrong horse here. You're attacking the wrong person.
Yeah.
All Purdue did was respond to a demand created by a medical system. The medical system who are misdiagnosing people as muscular causes and saying it's a structural cause, thereby preventing the cause from ever being resolved, which
Mhm.
leads you to the alternative process, which is not to resolve a cause, but to mask a symptom. Masking symptoms is the medical system's presentation. They have put the white flag up saying, I don't know how to know what the cause of your pain is. I don't know what to tell you. All I can do is give you ways of masking your symptoms. That's what you can expect from us. Don't expect more.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes. Thank you for just being so blunt and just being so honest because that's exactly how I feel as well. I do feel like they just need a person to blame because half of the
Of course.
time that's all that they do. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. But I guess to go back to chronic pain, are ways to really deal with your muscle? Do you just go to a chiropractor? Do you stretch it out? Do you do wood therapy? I mean, what exactly do you do to actually resolve this then?
Okay. So forget any medical practitioner. Chiropractic, physical therapy, pain management, orthopedic, neurology. Forget any of that. It's if you have a muscular cause. Let me explain something. I've treated 17 to 18,000 people in 30 years.
Yeah.
The majority of them diagnosed with structural abnormalities, thousands scheduled for surgeries. In my experience, I have shown that 98 to 99% of cases, the cause of pain is muscular. 98 to 99% of the people I have treated over 30 years, I have shown the cause to be muscular and resolve their pain through a targeted strength training program that I created, which employs physics and weightlifting. I'll explain a
Okay.
little bit about that. And I get people to a 80 to 100% reduction in symptom and return of function by day one. Day one. At the
Nice.
end of that first session, you will have 80 to 100% reduction in symptom and return of function. Because I know it's muscular. I know how to address the muscles, get them back to their optimal length, and then strengthen them appropriately. Within 4 to 6 weeks, you are pain free, fully functional. You will not have your symptom again. I have given you the tools. I give you videos on how to perform these exercises, and then you sustain that. As long as you sustain your strength, you'll never have pain. So, the general principle as to why chronic pain exists is that you live in a gravitational force on Earth. Everything you do, there is a force being pushed down upon you. For me to lift this cup, I have to push against gravity. Therefore, muscles must create an equivalent force to push up so I can do this. If the force outputs how much output the muscle creates is less than the force requirement of gravity, the muscle will strain and elicit pain.
Huh.
It will continue to do that infinitum if you do not understand which muscles do not have the equivalent force output and strengthen them with isolated exercises, applying progressive resistance, making them adapt to more and more resistance until their force output is equal to or greater than the force requirement of your activity, at which time you are pain-free and fully functional. That is the basis of 98 to 99% of the 140 million Americans and 1 billion people suffering worldwide with chronic pain. That I will end it all if this is allowed to go through.
Wow, that is amazing. I mean, the way that you're explaining it, it makes sense because I mean, gravity
That's
does
because I'm a logician and I was taught logical thinking as a child. And I went into medical school basically not as a student, but as a person analyzing what was being taught. And within a couple of weeks, I knew it was baseless. And I said I would then go on and teach myself a method. I created a brand new science called the science of functionality, which basically means from head to toe, any activity you perform, I can break it down at every joint, how the joint surfaces move, what muscles are responsible for stabilizing the joints, what muscles work synergistically to create the activity. If there's a breakdown, what muscle might break down? What would the symptom be if that muscle breaks down? How do you strengthen that muscle back? All of it.
That's amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, I could only imagine your IQ is just beyond the wall for you to
Well,
even, well, not only create that, but to implement that and show the results are real. I mean, it just and I also like the fact that you called yourself a logician.
well,
Hilarious.
that
I
is
like that. I
that
like
is the
that
truth.
add-on. You know what I mean? A logical and then magician because you're not really using magic. You're using science and
It's
logic
straight
to
science.
handle what is really going on with the body. And I remember back in high school, I took a medical biology class that, and we had to have like a little dummy, and we had to put on clay each muscle
Yes.
on the dummy or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to me because I could still recall the tiny muscles in certain areas. And you don't realize how much of an impact. And people say it all the time. You don't realize how much you use that part of your body until that part of your body is affected or in pain or
Correct.
hurting, so that's absolutely ridiculous how science or the health field refuses to acknowledge something so like it's right there. It's like the sky is blue, but it could be purple. Like, no, the sky is blue. It's right there. So it's ridiculous to me. Oh my
Let
goodness.
me just throw this out to you. So, this is the way the medical system works. You had that back problem. Remember? You dropped your pen and now you're having back pain. And they treated you for a herniated disc and they've given you physical therapy and chiropractor and nothing's worked and you're still having pain and you still had to live your life. You're still trying to work and you maybe put your back muscles in more spasm and now you're starting to be like, now I can't even get out of bed. And now you're starting to get scared and they probably gave you a couple of opioids and you're like becoming a bit delusional because it kind of makes you spacey. And all of a sudden you're like, uh-oh, it's now 6 months to a year down the road and I'm worse. I don't know if I'm going to get out of this. And they say, well, the only alternative we have left is surgery. And you freaking out say, do you think it's going to work? And they say, well, it might work, it might not, but we don't know what else to tell you. And you decide to get that 5-level fusion for $350,000. And at the end of it, you're worse, maybe bedridden. Let me ask you this. Do they get the $350,000? Damn right they do. Of course they did.
Their money.
It's called fee for service. It's called fee for service. It's the only industry on the planet that gets paid outside of outcome. So if you're a chef, right, that is correct. If you're a chef and you burn my steak, you don't expect me to pay. If you're a mechanic and you don't and I turn the key on and the car doesn't start, you don't get paid. I do a 5-level fusion on you and you are crippled after it, I get paid. Guess what? I get to give you a new diagnosis called failed back surgery syndrome, which is my way of saying I just did a surgery on you. You still have your pain, and the word syndrome implies a set of symptoms without an etiology. So I'm basically saying I'm going to give you a new diagnosis which says I gave you surgery, you still have back pain, and I don't know why. But I'm going to treat you under this new diagnosis.
Oh my
That
goodness.
is a
That's so
real
frustrating.
diagnosis, failed back surgery syndrome.
No, you're absolutely right. It happens a lot of the times,
Right.
a lot of the time. So many people, they depend on the health field to help them, but then in reality, nobody thinks about this. And I'm
No
so
one's
glad
getting
we're,
better.
I
That
know,
should be a red flag.
it is. It should be a red flag. Like why aren't we getting better if we're all having some type of pain, some type of
Correct.
why can't we think about this? But nobody really thinks about muscles, and it's interesting because I was having pain in my knee and I thought, oh, it's because I'm just getting fat because I had my two sons, so I'm like, let me just lose the weight and I'll be fine. And then the pain went away, but then it came back, and then I'm like, oh, okay, that's weird. So I talked to an OT and she was just like, well, stop moving it. Like we said
Oh
earlier,
my
stop.
God.
She was
Oh
like,
my
stop moving
God.
it. And it says stop doing any type of exercises that causes pain in that area. So she was like, no more squats, no more lunges, no more anything. I was like, well, I need to work on my legs. I can't just not do that. So then I started, I remembered, I went back to my science and biology class and I remembered the figure of the muscles. And I'm like, there's muscles around here. So I have like this roller and I just went around my knee and started rolling all around it. And it literally saved my life. I have not had pain. So every day, literally, I just roll my joints area with it and it helps me relieve that pain that was in there. So that's why I'm kind of glad that we're talking about this because it just proves that this is not a theory, this is reality, this is the
Oh
truth. The
yeah.
facts is that people need to start focusing on their muscles.
Right. So let me just make a point about what you just said. You just used two exercises, squats and lunges, you said. I can't do
Mhm.
squat. So I can tell you right now, I know what the cause of your knee pain was.
Why?
Right? It's around your kneecap, right? Well,
Yeah,
here's the
yeah.
problem. You're doing too much quad work. You're not doing enough hamstring to balance it, the
Oh,
posterior thigh muscle. As a result, your quad shortened. Your quad is attached to your kneecap via the quad tendon. So when the muscle's shortening, it's pulling up too excessively on your kneecap. So when you bent your knee, instead of the kneecap gliding around it, it's compressed, compressed, compressed. That causes knee pain. All you would have had to do was strengthen your hamstring and you would have balanced it out and you'd be perfect.
strengthen my hamstring.
Right. What
Goodness.
you did, you just did something to try to short term minimize the symptom, but you didn't fix the problem. I assure you, you didn't fix the problem. It's
I
impossible.
didn't.
You couldn't have.
You're absolutely right because I didn't, but now I could do I only could do squats. I still can't do lunges.
Hmm.
So that's my issue where I no longer could do any lunges because of that pain. It's
Right.
still there even if I rub it out.
Correct.
But the squats I was able to handle because I just kind of like repositioned myself to do.
So you compensated.
Yeah.
You altered how you did it. Well, if there's a right way to do it and you compensate, then you ain't doing it the right way. And now you're going to just bring in other muscles and end up them straining. It's just a question of time, depending on the level of resistance you use.
Huh.
There's a pure way of doing every exercise. I applied the laws of physics to weightlifting. There are few people who know more about the biomechanics of strength training than me. I personally have put on 60 pounds. I went from 160 pounds to 220 pounds.
Wow. That's
I'm
interesting.
63. I squat 405 pounds and I straight leg deadlift 405 pounds.
My nephew, he's 12 or 13 and he squats 200 and he's trying to get to 250. That's his next goal.
Right.
And
So the question
he's
is he
trying to
doing
get
it correctly?
I don't know
Or
because
will
he
he end
wears
up
a knee
hurting
brace.
himself?
I know
Oh, he
that's the
was a knee
thing.
brace. So there's your
He
answer.
wears a knee brace, so I'm assuming that he's not doing it correctly,
That
like
is
you just
correct. It's
said.
just a question of time.
Oh my goodness, I gotta talk to him after this conversation because yes,
Yeah.
that is so interesting. Oh my goodness. Well, I'm glad we talked about this. I'm noticing the time and it's catching up to us. So I have to
Yeah.
ask you one quick question.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more personal. If you could tell your younger self anything, what would you tell your younger self? If you had to ask
So you
yourself
have
about
to understand that I found enlightenment 5 years ago. I believe in God very strongly, and I think that my life's path is a continuum. So I don't think that there are any mistakes ever made. Everything is a building block onto the next thing that happens to my life, and so anything that even one iota changed in my earlier life would not have me where I am right now, which is at the point that I expect to take control of the issue of chronic pain and end the world's chronic pain epidemic.
I
So
like that.
I would never. I am joyous about everything that's ever happened in my life.
That's very nice. I really like that answer. It's very simple, yet very peaceful at the same time. You know, you
I am
have
the
that
most
peace.
calm person you'll find. I am completely at peace in my life. I love every day.
You have passion for pain and this knowledge and this logician that you are, but you are a peaceful man that finds peace in everything that you can. That is grateful.
Absolutely.
I'm very happy to have met you and have this conversation with you. Um, if anybody wants to know more about Dr. Yaz and his method, go check out his website. I have it on my website, and you can always contact him and reach out if you want to know more. I'm pretty sure he's here to help because it sounds like that's his mission is to help the world and help people understand this concept that is just blinded by the world, by society, and what we are forced to think about this, you know. So let's shine a light, shift the perspective. Let's think about this in another way. So always, always, always keep thinking, y'all. Bye.